All right, my guest today is my beloved friend, mentor, former boss, best-selling author, grief expert, child behavior expert, Bryan Post, man. Thank you so much for your time, dude.
Thank you, Chris. What a pleasure. Glad to be here with you.
Oh, thank you, man. So one thing I was hoping to do with this platform and these conversations is to kind of normalize topics that we around healing that we normally sweep away that aren't really at the forefront of everyday societal awareness. So, dude, I was just wondering about your process. When did you first realize you kind of had this gift for helping people heal trauma and heal
Mm.
emotionally?
Um, I am not certain about a gift. I think when I finished I went to college to play football. Playing football is the only thing I ever wanted to do. So it got me to college. And shortly after I stopped playing football, my very first class was an introduction to social work. My next class was an introduction to sociology. So I actually fell in love with both of those schools of thought, and I had mentors in both areas. So I could have very easily ended up just being a professor of sociology somewhere because I really loved and adored my sociology professor. His name was Bill Zellner. He's one of my first mentors that I ever had. And when I finished my bachelor's degree, I had no idea what I was going to do. So I was able to get accepted into an advanced standing program for social work. So I was able to go to the University of Texas in Arlington and get my master's degree in 1 year because of this program. And I had the option to do that or to go and work for the Social Security Administration because they tried to hire me. I'm assuming because I was a minority, because they only interviewed me and my Native American student cohort, and they offered me the job. I turned that down. I couldn't imagine working for Social Security. So I went to graduate school, and one day I had a professor that I really enjoyed. His name was Lawrence G. Anderson, and he'd retired from the state child welfare, and he was in private practice, and he was just this real irreverent kind of figure. And I loved his class. And one day I was walking through the courtyard at the university, and he said, "Hey, Bryan," he called me over. And he said, "Where are you going to do your practicum at?" Because we had to do these clinical practicums. And I said, I don't know. He said, "Well, why don't you do it here?" He was the director of the community service clinic. So I was like, "Okay, sure." And that was kind of my first entry, even idea that I would do anything in the lines of healing work with people. And it was just a natural fit. And I got into it and never really looked back. And as I got further into my professional career, I just realized more and more how much my sister's challenges and my challenges as children and my parents' challenges, because I was adopted, my sister was adopted, my parents' challenges with us, how much that influenced the trajectory of my career and who I am as a person. And then over a period of time, I just realized more and more that that was my purpose all along. You just have these things that happen. You go on these different journeys, you never know where you're going to end up. And this is exactly where I ended up.
All right, man. So I don't know. I respectfully might disagree that it's not a gift, man. I have these fond memories of people being like, I don't know how Bryan got a bunch of grown men to lay on the floor and cry, but like that's an
I think a part of that, Chris, is the number one, a really deep self-awareness with for myself, because I was fortunate to have some really profound, emotionally rooted therapy experiences. And I don't think a lot of people get those experiences early in their career. So I was able to get immersed in really intense emotional work from a very early age in my career. So in essence, I've been doing this work for 25 years, but during that whole 25 years, more or less, especially I'd say the greater part of 23 of those 25 years, I have just grown into being someone who's really comfortable with emotion. And so because our society typically doesn't like to dwell in emotion, and I just happen to be really comfortable. And then also, playing football in high school and being really intense all also lends itself to a comfort around that. um, I feel like it was just something I was able to build on. And if you do anything long enough, you can become a master at it. And then and I was obsessed about learning this work and learning the science behind it and doing it and doing it at the highest level, all over the world. And I'm well beyond those 10,000 hours that Malcolm Gladwell talks about. So I accept the compliments of the giftedness, but I truly just believe this is what God intended me to do. And this is my purpose in life.
Oh yeah, I agreed, man. Agreed. I think one of my favorite things to witness, dude, is, initially everyone's kind of like, we all have these kind of, we're not even aware of it, but egoic maybe walls or masks or things that might hold back the grief, sorrow, pain, and fear inside of us. And
Yes.
I would just see this experience and see in others a profound relaxation going through the other side of your grief rituals. Or, well, how
Mhm.
would you kind of agree with that? Just
Oh, of
talking about
course. Of course. And I think it starts with the fact what you said is that most people are not even aware that they have grief, much less trauma and much less painful experiences in their life. Or if they are aware of them, they've really buried them over time. One of the things that research says is that the older we get, the further away from access to our emotional hemisphere we become, but that's our right hemisphere, and the
Mhm.
more cognitive and rational we get. So we try to really um, lock ourselves into this rational like left hemisphere being, when in fact 75% of our whole brain is emotional. And then when we get really stressed and the emotional kicks in, it just causes all this cognitive stuff to go nutty and go haywire. Well, you have a whole society of humanity that doesn't like emotions, right? Emotions, number one, they hurt. No one, they're uncomfortable. Sadness, it makes us uncomfortable. The probably the emotion the feeling we're most comfortable with above any is anger, and that's because it's protective. Anger keeps us separate from each other, and when you're stressed and in survival, what you want oftentimes is separation. You don't want closeness and connection. So to push through that anger, you will oftentimes find right behind it is sadness. And then right underneath that is fear. And that sadness and that fear is all tied into grief and unexpressed, unprocessed, painful experiences. And then we just carry on through life having never dealt with any of that stuff. And so when you're given an opportunity to walk through that door and really support it and encourage that you can do it and that you're not going to die, I can't tell you how many adults, when confronting their fears and their sadnesses and their griefs, their biggest fear is that if they drop into that, they are going to die. So they don't want to go there. They don't want to cry beyond a tear. They don't want to drop into the emotional body. And they just really resist it because they're afraid. And that is even though fear is false evidence appearing real, it is a very vulnerable, a very vulnerable feeling to go into deep emotion when most of the people around you have never encouraged it or supported it or even known how to go about allowing it. We start off as infants. When we cry, we're shushed or we're given a bottle or we're told it's okay. And then we get older, we're told to, brush it off and get up and go on. And then we're told, boys, men don't cry. And we get all these messages about emotional suppression. And then as we're receiving messages for emotional suppression, we inherently and unconsciously suppress the emotions of those around us. And so it's just a cycle.
right, a big round merry-go-round of
It's a
not wanting
negative
to
feedback loop.
feel. It's so funny you say that about the suppression. Oh man. You feel it, I'm gonna die, right? Which is a hilariously non-logical thing. I
Yeah.
I know that when I'm on the other side of something, I can see it like that's just vibration. Like I was so
Mm.
scared of a vibration. That is alrighty then.
Yeah, that's what I tell people is that every cell, which we have trillions of them, and you can't even see them, they're so small, they carry a story, they carry an emotion, and they carry a vibration. All we're doing is opening that one cell, and that one cell can carry so much vibration with it. It activates all the other cells of the body to make you think that that is a real thing, but it's not. It's just this little sliver of energy and vibration that can get so big.
Energetic reality, yes. Yes, and they really do suck when you're in it. But on the other side of being able to see it, it's just vibration. I'm like, oh, I've been stuck in that for how long?
Oh
Now,
yeah.
in your work, do you subscribe that the kind of inner world, what we hold internally, is then reflected to us externally? Like,
Oh, 100%.
mhm.
I J. Krishnamurti, who was an Indian philosopher from in the early 40s through the 60s and 70s, he calls it the mirror of reflection. He says everywhere you look, you're just reflected back to yourself. And we really, the beauty of that is that when Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world, is it gives us the opportunity to take ultimate responsibility for what shows up in our life, which is really hard to do. But when you are outside of you, it's like right now, and I love to talk about manifestation and the law of attraction and all of that stuff because I spend so much time thinking about inner peace, and I spend so much time seeking inner peace that right now I'm living in inner peace. My outer peace is my inner peace. Like right now, when I look, I have windows that surround me, and all I see are open fields of green and a pond, and I see horses and cows, and that's my inner peace, right? But if I'm in a group of people and someone shows up with pain, that is a reflection of my pain. So instead of me getting upset with that person because they are in pain, all I've got to do is reflect on my own pain to draw me deeper into an emotional connection with them and where they're at. And then from that place, help them be able to walk through that with more support and with more love and with more compassion.
Beautiful, man. Do you think it seems like these unconscious elements where I'm being shown something from life and either I'm resisting learning it, blaming someone else, or I'm trying to figure it out, but I just can't actually connect the dots and get the insight. Do you think part of, that is it timing? It seems to be there's an element of timing for learning what the reality is reflecting back to me. But then it also seems to be there's an element of really, really being self-accountable, as you're saying.
Mm.
Um, I don't know.
I think it's all a combination. I think the timing goes back to the dissolving of the ego that you talk about. Because in reality, all that exists is love. Actually, the poet Rumi said, or it may have been Gibran, I believe it was Rumi that said, all that exists is love. Everything else is just a cry for help. And if I think about that, I think about the fact that I believe that we dwell in love, and the only thing that keeps us out of love is fear. So when we talk about timing, the timing is just being able to get to a place to where we can relax our fear and step into truth. And when you are searching for truth, the only thing that's keeping you from truth is just being able to step out that, relax that fear around you that's keeping you from it. When you can relax that fear around you, you can step into that truth. And sometimes we are working so hard trying to get an awareness or to make something happen, we are pushing it away. Because the very act of trying hard is usually driven by stress and anxiety. So you have stress and anxiety trying to get this thing and make this connection. And that very process is pushing you further away from it.
Dude, bro, I had a mentor tell me, I don't know if you've told me this, like, Chris, you've been in a real state of lack and deprivation, which then scares your ego and you try harder, and then reinforces the lack and deprivation. You chase your tail. I'm like,
It's the negative feedback loop. It's the
yeah.
negative feedback loop. And that becomes a brain-based state. So back to the timing. Well, we could, if we were able to trust love enough, collapse all fear in a moment's time. We have so much negative conditioning that tells us that we can't do it, that it takes us time to grow into the process of our awareness that we actually can do it. So people talk about unfolding the layers of the onion. Well, that's not time dependent. That's us dependent. The layers of the onion unfold as we are allowing to allow it to unfold. And so, it's time and then it's not time. It's just this very nebulous kind of thing.
Yeah, man, it's a big onion too. It's a big whole onion in one
There are
go.
a lot of layers to life, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
But and then not only the layers to life, the layers to life that we know. What about the layers of the generations that inform us? What about the fact that our DNA, we're byproducts of our DNA? And then you take the fact that our bodies completely rejuvenate every 7 years. And the way they rejuvenate every 7 years is the DNA programming to create the vibration of the physical reality. So we have generations that inform us that we're completely unconscious about. And it's just an interesting process. So it is a very big onion. I think it's as big as the universe.
Absolutely. And man, one thing that I found so unique about your approach, coming at this from the meditation vantage point, where people, pull away more so from the world. People say, like, I'm going, in that vantage point, but like, I'm going more formless and less away from matter. And dude, you are posted up like in the world. You really take, you take it into the realm of matter,
Yeah.
which is, yeah.
Well, it's just where I exist, right? I mean, I always like to think that anyone can be peaceful in a monastery, but find your peace in the midst of the world in these relationships where you can really get reflected. And I think that's our ongoing challenge and opportunity. Of course, some people, a monastery is just a better place for them.
Word. Got it, man. So, dude, is there any, are you still looking to bring those grief retreats, those grief rituals? Is that still on the menu for an offering? Or is that
You
kind of
know, it's interesting that you asked that, because I have, number one, those events they're really exhausting, right? So they really take a lot out of me. And it's like building up to that place. But I started a couple weeks ago. There was this trend on TikTok. It was called Hillman Talk. And it was started by this Dr. Barlow, and it was for Black creators. And you could go on and you could basically start a class for any subject. So I started talking about trauma, and then I started talking about Black trauma and the trauma of the Black people and of our generations and slavery. And I could go so far down the rabbit hole of that. And then as I'm doing these little TikToks, which are 60 seconds, all of a sudden in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to invite all these people into a healing weekend. I'm going to bring all these traumatized people. And then finally, when I back away from that, I'm like, what the hell's wrong with you? You don't want to do that. You don't want all that pain. So who knows what's going to unfold for me throughout for the universe. But right now, one of the things we're doing is I'm doing a Fear to Love certification. And just like this weekend next weekend in Texas, I'm bringing a small group of people. We'll do 2.5 very intensive emotional days, because as I train people in the cognitive frameworks of the fear to love methodology, I need them to also have a deep immersion, as you know, and as you're aware of the emotional reality of who we are and the emotional meaning of the work. And so that's kind of the thing that I'll be doing, over the next couple of years, is doing those more isolated events. I don't know that I'll ever, open up a big event to, just to mainstream public, because it's just a lot, and I just don't know how married to that I am.
Got it, man. I could totally see that being incredibly difficult not to take on. Yeah, everything there. But dude, one thing I'm just so grateful for, man, and you taught me it, is that there's no mistakes, there's just learning. So and I've just been having such good success with this, especially for mindfulness with kids. When I tell the parents, man, I got this from you too, that you're gonna best you can be a bridge of regulation. The kid's gonna fidget, he's gonna send emojis, he's gonna move about, let that process happen, man. And then we're gonna, best you can, parents, coaches, energetically template this reality. All right, we're gonna go in, no mistakes, just learning. And bro, it just takes the pressure off. Before
Oh
I had,
yeah.
yeah, before I had that light bulb, I was like, all right, sit up tall, close your eyes, don't move.
Mm,
And I'm like,
mm.
wait. So man, just that approach, dude. Thank you so much. No
Yeah,
mis-
well, that's awesome. Well, that actually is moving into the formless. So that's taking the rigidity of what you think a form is supposed to be and moving into the formless. When you remove the fears of failure and the expectations and the judgments of failure and how things are supposed to be, then you can just relax into what is. And as you relax into what is, then we don't fail, we just learn. And in that regard, the sooner you can fail, the better, because you're going to learn that much faster. And we're just so programmed from the time we're kids. You get an F in school if you mess up. You don't get an A for messing up, which you should get an A for the attempt, but you want to keep learning. You want to realize that that's not the end. Now we have to learn more. And what happens is, because we dwell under the auspices of the fear of failure, we try to cheat, we try to skirt, we try to do everything we can to avoid it, when in fact, the failure is the way to the mastery. The failure is the way, it is the path to the growth.
Dude, I love it, man, because you can see you. I haven't ever met anyone in a position of leadership in society, in the world, that can see constructs like that. Success is just created, manufactured
Yeah.
malarkey. That's bullshit. And you can see it and call it, and it really dissolves and allows for such a more fruitful expression, man. It's just truly beautiful, man. Truly grateful. Um, yeah. Is there anywhere where people can find you, man? Next big endeavors?
Oh yeah, I always have lots of things going on. Probably my two biggest endeavors right now is Fear to Love. So feartolove.com. I'm about to launch a 40 city, probably going to end up being more like 50 city world tour,
What?
including 7 different countries.
What?
Yeah, that's kicking off at the end of
What?
April. Yeah, and then also Bondify.ai is the world's first AI powered parenting support app. It's all love-based parenting. It's all programmed after my fear to love methodology. I'm super excited about that. It's an opportunity for parents to get real-time support right in the palm of their hands. I work with so many parents who struggle. It's not the 2:30 interaction that's the problem. It's the 8:30 or the 9 o'clock or the 10 o'clock tonight interaction, when all the counselors are asleep and all the support has shut down for the day, when parents oftentimes need someone just to give them a little feedback about what's going on, just to give them an opportunity to see something a little bit different in that moment. And that's what Bondify does. And so Bondify.ai is that endeavor. And then we're also launching a new nonprofit called the Adoption Community. So adoption is it's my heart, it's my purpose and my passion. So pretty much everything I do is focused around adoption. But what I teach, Chris, is actually just human behavior. It transcends any category of people. It transcends race and culture. It's just human behavior. So the fear to love method is human behavior, but we're launching the adoption community, which I want to be the biggest hub throughout the United States for adoptive families to have a place of support and inspiration and encouragement. So any adoptive family can go there, but any parent can access any of my material, any of my resources. Just mark out adoption and write in whatever you want to write in, and it all fits.
Brilliant, bro. And I can really attest. It's, beyond family dynamics and beyond adoption, man. Yeah, human behavior and how it helps get refined and through it. And dude, just for my own curiosity, what are you doing in 50 cities, bro? Are dude, you gonna be speaking,
Lecturing.
teaching?
Yeah, I'm gonna lecture.
Amazing, dude. Oh
Yeah,
my God.
10 to 2 every day.
That is so
And
cool.
I'm looking forward to the challenge to my emotional and my physical as well as my spiritual being.
Yeah, man, that's a lot of chi, bro. That's a big chi
It is.
output. Are you
That
gonna
is.
come back to home base and recharge, or just on the road?
Yeah, no, I'll be coming back. We've got it spread out pretty well. I've got one little stint that's going to be 5 cities in a row, but most of them are spread out. I got a few days in between.
Brilliant, man. Well, dude, I'll link all that stuff in the description. Thank you so much, man, for all you've done for this life and all you share and
Well,
yeah, all you
Chris,
do in the world.
thank you for being a beautiful soul because you truly are. From the first moment I met you, just saw you, you've always been a real light, and I know how hard you've worked to continue to allow that light to shine brighter. And so I just want to acknowledge you for that and tell you how much I honor you and just appreciate your friendship and your love and how you keep showing up.
Love you, bro. Thank you so
Love you as
much.
well.
Breathe that in. I'm gonna accept it.
All right.
Hell yeah, man.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, dude.